Great. Okay, so now we'll open it up to Q&A. We'll stop the share. I see people leaving lots and lots of comments, and I can't respond to a single one. So I hope that maybe someone saves them or something. But yeah, so we'll open up the Q&A, and here's the best way to handle the Q&A. Please use the hand raising function on the Q&A, and then we can take you in order, and that way it's very structured, and then we can divvy things up. And please, actually, Suzy's here as well too, and you're definitely welcome to ask questions to Suzy. This is both of our presentations in some way, in my heart anyway. So please, yeah, let's hear. I'd be happy to hear what you have to say and any questions. So Troy, thank you. Yeah, Troy, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Jeff. As everyone else is saying, thank you very much for this presentation, and to Suzy as well. This was quite inspirational, and it really reminds me too of my contact experiences. I feel that a lot of them are maybe not quite the same, but very similar. After I started awakening in 2018 to my experiences, actually remembering them and knowing that I had gone up on a ship and actually have for my whole life. That is when I started to have this feeling of benevolence, and that there's no fear, there's no harm being done, even though some of the people are saying that the Greys are evil, that they're harmful, and there's other stuff that we've heard. Yeah, I have to say that I've also had similar experiences with Ananda's friends. There's a lot that I'll be writing about too, but they also gave me, I think, what could be kind of a book of its own, a large teaching download. But I think they've been teaching my whole life, even from I walk in. And I call it the web of life teaching. And it is kind of this web of life of how the energy body, the soul, the past lives, emotions, and these other parts of ourselves are not separate. We don't seem separate. They seem just one, and they affect each other and affect the body, the metabolism, the cognition, functions. And so that's like one of my teachings for
Awesome, Troy. Thanks, buddy. Yeah, well, I'm happy you got something out of it, so it's great. Thank you. Yeah. Jen, go ahead.
Hi, Jeff, and hi, Suzy, and everyone. Thank you very much for, sharing your comparisons, because I think, like everybody in the chat was saying, and Troy was just saying, that it's really important to validate each other and to understand that this is happening to lots of people all over the world. And honestly, my experiences are just starting to become reality, because I always was told that I had an overactive imagination, and that I was crazy for a long time. So it's validating and very pleasant to know. So at the beginning, Jeff, you had mentioned about disclosure and things like that. And my question's for both of you, and I'd love to hear from Suzy as well. Do you think that the governments are in charge of the UFO disclosure, pardon me, or do you think that the extraterrestrials are deciding on how it's going to be coming about, or is it something else, or maybe a combination of both?
Yeah, great question. All I can do is speculate, right? I do think it's both. I think the elders said to me, it's an intuitive, like they want Earth to join the Federation of Planets, if you will, so that whatever collective they have, that's what they're that's the end game, if you will. And it's a slow moving and intuitive process. And I know they have the future tech, but she also, when she's talking about my personal timeline and her ability to see my future, she basically says we have the ability to see the outlines, the directions, the maps, but you make the ultimate choices. So I think that explains how the present moment, it really is just, and this is quantum, right? This is quantum reality, that you have probabilities spanning out, and the human brain is just part of the game, that it's not always predictable. We got our emotions, we don't really know. So when you're looking at timelines, There's unpredictability. So I think, and when you look at the collective and a planet, it's obviously there's unpredictability there as well too. So I think that it's a game. I think it's a game
Oh.
of push and pull of both. I don't. I really resist this idea that that they're coming down and telling people what policies to have and what corporations should be doing and all that. I think that's just ridiculous. But I mean, they express it themselves to me in the contact events. There's some initial communication. The degree and level, I'm not really clear. And but I'm convinced that there was conflict in that as well too. And in that conversation or in that initial communication. And I'm convinced that what we're seeing now is a process of agreeing and understanding that this is the best for humanity, actually. And so I'm convinced that that's what the whole 2017 starting, and I think John Ramirez called it a soft disclosure that ends in 2027. And I'm convinced that's them kind of saying it has to happen because your population needs to know. So I'm convinced that's what that is. And that's kind of a group. It's both sides agreeing that has to happen. So that's what I'm convinced of anyway. Suzy, you have probably maybe a different perspective. Go ahead.
The Greys have always said that disclosure is a long process, needs to be a long process, and that it is about human readiness and spirituality. They're waiting for us to raise our spirituality on the planet and our awareness. And this could be a long process, but there is a limit to that process because they also know that environmentally we are running out of time. We've got things happening on the planet with severe weather now that is actually going to make food scarcity a more difficult situation. So for my belief is that ultimately, whether we like it or not, or whether governments say that they are in control of disclosure or whatever, as far as I'm concerned, the ETs are in control of disclosure. They can make it happen faster or slower, whatever they want. I have said that over time, when we are showing signs of readiness, then they will begin to increase sightings on the planet. And those sightings will increase to the point where we are seeing landed craft with entities in the environment, and it will become undeniable. If they have to do push to shove, that's the way they will do it, so that we are kind of brought to a point much quicker. I think that at the moment there's a probably chaos behind the scenes in the States and possibly one or two other countries. UK might be one of them. There's chaos behind the scenes because some people have come forward giving their thoughts on how disclosure should be, and it's not happening that way. So there are still factions that are trying to stop disclosure for their own personal reasons. And John Ramirez will tell you that the fundamentalist Christian movement is one of those obstacles. He has stated that. So we are at a time where I actually think it is quite dangerous for experiencers to be speaking out too much. There are some of us who have been trained to do that, and Jeff and I are two of those people. But for other people, wanting to suddenly go public can be a dangerous thing, because we're reaching a time where there is what the ETs call the time of examination, and some unpleasant things could happen during that time as different groups want to regain or gain or maintain control, and we don't know what could happen during that time. So this isn't a time for being foolhardy about your experiences. This is a time for quietly examining them. And if you're meant to go public, as Jeff and I are, that will happen without you making any effort to do it. It will happen to you. So that's just a slight warning that I would like to leave sitting there.
Great. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks, Jen.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I resonate with that so much about being careful, because like I said, your overactive imagination, you get labeled, and it's not a pleasant place to be. People don't take you seriously. But thank you so much for your time, both. Suzy
Great.
and Jeff. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Jen. Thank you. Manny, go ahead.
Hi, thanks for the presentation, both Suzy and Jeff. There was one thing I'm an engineer, so I'm always about the details. So I
Nice.
apologize if I get hung up on the details. But you were talking earlier in the presentation about how you were on a ship and you were able to see the timelines, and you could actually see and experience your death happening in the 40s or 50s, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Is that the question? Yeah, I can definitely answer that
No,
question.
no. I had a question. I want to make sure I had the timeline right, that you saw yourself dying in the 1940s or 50s, where I was kind of curious if you were able to get details to validate that you did die,
Yeah.
whether it be name of the person, and then go, because I'm always fascinated with normally I hear about people's past life, there's a gap. Like you can't
Right.
reconnect with somebody who might still be alive. So I was
Right.
curious if you've ever done anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Great question. And yeah, past lives are very fascinating. And
Mhm.
that whole thing is the kind of seed that spawns my own I have excessive, quote unquote, I call it excessive anyway, past life awareness. So, and I have found the details of that past life. So
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Cool.
and it's sad. So I was in the concentration camp. I was a Jew in a concentration camp.
Oh,
So it's like that. And it's
okay.
very anyway, not too much detail needed there, but I'm aware of it, and it leaves imprints. And I had certain things happen when I was a child, or I had certain effects left over from being a child, and I have a certain things happened. But yeah, I died in the concentration camp, and then
Mhm.
I witnessed that on an alien spacecraft. I was so at the time I didn't
Mhm.
know those details, obviously, and I wasn't shown by the Greys that detail. I was just shown the death, and I don't know any other detail about it. I just see that whatever happened to him, which was
Mhm.
me, I was crying about it. So even after the death, I was still so sad and crying. And there's no other erroneous information. And
Mhm.
before I even gain the memories of the alien contact, I gain awareness of that past life. So, and it is, yeah. And I was in Poland, and I was very aware. I'm very aware of some of the details. I'm aware of the family connections, and I'm very aware
Mhm.
of. Anyway, you don't want to know, trust me.
Okay.
But in my book, I talk about that awareness, and it's very significant because there's other past life awareness I have of anyway, someone written in history, and I'll talk about it when I'm ready to talk about that. But I do mention it in the book who that is, and I can go back and check information. And so the fascinating part about past life awareness is that you're dealing with information your conscious mind could never know. So, and that's how I proved the last life. So there's information there I never had information about. And then you're saying to yourself, no, I know that when he died, this happened, and that room was like this, and then he died this way, or vice versa, the people he loved and the environment he was in. And then I go and I research, and it turns out that's what life was like in that environment. Or the geography, where the Nazi bombers planes came in first, and he was there, and yeah, that geography matched up, and I could figure out where he was. So yeah, it's details like that I have, and I'm able to use, and I have my own world where I'm like I get very fascinated by it, putting those pieces together because it expands my own consciousness. So yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it quite is. Appreciate it. And thanks for the details.
Yeah, you got it. No worries. Awesome. Alita. Yeah. You're muted, Alita. You're muted. Yeah.
I told myself to unmute, but I didn't listen to myself.
No worries.
I'm thank you very much for this presentation, both of you. It was wonderful. My
Thank
question
you.
is about this city. Is the city going to be in a different timeline? Do you think it will be in a different timeline, a different vibration? Will it be all over the earth, or will there be a place we can move to if it does start?
Um,
Not sure how it's going to work.
yeah, so that detail is laid out in the book. So and so yeah, there's no I'm not presented any information about timelines in that way, though I understand what you were referring to. But there is a interesting feature to this. So, Tom DeLonge, he tweeted something along the lines of, the phenomenon is in a different frequency to humanity. And I actually know that the aliens are paranormal, meaning that they're in that realm, whatever that realm is, the ghost realm, if that's what we want to call it. And when they interact with us, they can disappear and move in and out of that realm. And that realm in paranormal, we know from paranormal research, is a frequency, and it's operating on kind of electromagnetic frequency. And yeah, part of my 24th contact event was the elder showing me that they changed the frequency of the planet. And it's in part the whole thing with people at Grayling Genetics. There seems to be, I think Ross Coulthard had actually mentioned a certain type of person can operate their craft. And so since we actually know that contactees can operate the craft, something must be in line with that, which is, having genetics, a certain type of genetic marker. It doesn't have to mean you have contact or not, because I'm convinced an actual elder, certain subspecies or certain races or some mixed races have actually genetics of other alien races. I'm convinced of that. So, yeah, they show me that and so I'm convinced personally that that's a reality, that would make a lot of sense, that what they're going to bring by their presence is a field change, if you will. It'll change us, it'll change the consciousness, it'll change the way we interact as humans by interacting with these entities, because that's what it does to the contactees. Another example of that is a lot of contactees I know become mediums. And I never had that ability growing up. And then, interacting with these aliens gives you an ability to interact with the kind of the paranormal realm. So all of that kind of links up, that there might be this kind of field change that would go on. They explain it in some detail. And, yeah, that's the best I can provide for that information. I don't really like playing prophet about it. I can only provide the information I was given, and I'm convinced of it to be real. It seems to be all adding up and lining up. But also, here's the other element, and I throw this in the book. I don't know what's symbolic versus being hard fact information. The entities themselves are subconscious creatures, or sorry, they communicate with symbols, and I'm convinced that the human mind is a very frontal lobe kind of experience, and the aliens themselves have a kind of a full exposure of the subconscious while they operate in the world. And I know that from the White Room. So that would make them very subconscious like dreamlike, or using symbols. So is the city a symbol of just a general idea of their presence on the planet? Maybe, I don't know. But that's kind of what I drift down to, that is that yeah, I'm pretty convinced that their presence alone will change the kind of quote unquote frequency of Earth, if you will. Yeah.
Thank you. That pretty much answers my question. I was thinking that the way that ETs can live on Venus is because they are in a different dimension than what we see as uninhabitable.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that that's kind of the way it'll happen here.
Yeah, well, what's crazy is it might already be happening here. So it could be likely that, just above your house, right, there might be something that the planes can fly through and we don't know about. So yeah, so it's and we may be exposed to that, we may not. I don't even really know that detail, but yeah, when I agree with you on that's I describe that in my book about being on Venus explicitly because I'm outside in the environment and I'm not affected by it at all. And I'm aware it's 400 degrees Celsius, and from not at the time I'm aware of that, but factual information now I'm very aware. And I was outside in the city. And so the only way that's able to happen is that we're phased in some kind of state when we're, and I think there's something to be said. Listen, I bring this back to the missing 411 phenomenon because there's a really good research there. And it appears that in some of the missing 411 cases that seem to be cryptoid related, I know this goes into some uncharted territory for people, but there are tales of people being taken by a cryptoid type entity. And then they're, as a biological form, they're in this other realm. And then the humans can't see them. And so there seems to be something, that's what I suspect, is that when a biological form is in these astral or ghost realms, we can't interact, we don't interact with the physical environment the same way. And therefore it allows us to be in these other harsher environments. I even have one of the contactees in Vancouver UFO. She talks about being on the moon, and she's outside on the moon. So the only way these are happening is that the physical biology is actually phased in some kind of state while in these other dimensions. And then we kind of walk around and act like we're just part of the environment, though we're slightly phased off and not affected by the harsh environments. Yeah.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Gregory.
I just woke up. Thanks.
We're
Yeah,
putting you to sleep.
no, it putting me to sleep in a wonderful way.
Oh,
So
great.
thanks.
Yeah, I understand. That's great. That's great.
Yeah. No, I first I would just comment on your idea of the city and what Alita brought up. Yeah, I never take paranormal phenomena literally. I always take it psychologically. In other words, that it's somehow related to our subtle body development, the evolution of our soul, in other words. So so like if you're appearing on Venus, Venus astrologically is the goddess of love. And the metal of Venus is copper. And all that has meaning because planets in our understanding in astrology and in alchemy have metals. And so they spin their metals into us, so to speak. And that gives us attributes of that realm. But anyway, my question for you was, when did your elder first started to shapeshift into a human? Time. What time? Was it recent or?
2008. 2008 is that contact event. Yeah. And that's the first time I ever see that. And it's really the only time in a physical contact event I saw that. And it's her interacting with me in human physical form. And it ends up being a whole sub story that my guru. Oh, I am going to, I'm gonna mute that person now that I know how to do that.
Mute that person.
Michelle, here we go, Michelle.
Bye, Michelle.
Yeah, sorry, Michelle. The 23rd contact event, 2008. And so anyway, my guru sensed her, and I have this private relationship with the guru, and it becomes this whole part of the story that he intertwines where he sensed her. And it's a very weird event that sticks out in my life. And at the time I didn't, as me who wasn't aware of the contact events, I'm not aware that that's an alien. I just had a very strange experience with a human, and I'm not aware of the extra detail. And it's when all the memories unravel. Actually, a very significant part of the story is that when the memories were unraveling and I didn't have knowledge of that, I didn't know the details of that contact event yet, though I had some flashbacks. I didn't know the extra level of detail here. And yet already the elder came to me in a dream in this very, very realistic form. Anyway, it's hard to go into the detail about that, but she's that human. So it was a very significant part that like my conscious mind had never put these pieces together, and she was already like one step ahead of me. And then once the whole memory of the contact event kind of unraveled, it's like she's in the contact event changing into the human. And so that was in 2008 when all that happened.
Okay, so what did she look like? Well, how was she dressed? What color was her hair?
Yeah, short black hair. She wears she was wearing a beret, like a French beret, like sideways French beret, like odd figure, like something that would actually make you kind of be like she's wearing a leather jacket, and then she had striped not pants, but what would you call it? Sorry. When you wear underneath a skirt, you might wear nylons, but not nylons, not yoga pants, but something tight, right? I don't know what the language is. And there'd be the stockings. They were brightly rainbow colored stockings, while wearing like a skirt, and then a jacket and a black hair. Can't remember. I have a lot. I think I may have the color of the jacket. I think it's a red jacket if I can recall. And then the short black hair. Yeah. And her face was Maybe kind of like a thinner, definitely a thinner individual, and maybe a bit longer face, if you will. Yeah, and she just acted very strange and very bizarre, and was over exaggerating her maneuvers and her language and everything. And yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. What? May I ask what?
It's just interesting because in my experience, the more conscious you become of the purpose of the alien agenda, the aliens become more and more humanized.
Hmm.
They shapeshift.
Interesting.
It's kind of a heads up that your understanding is maturing.
Hmm.
And so that's why I was curious. And red and black hair, black beret, red clothes,
Yeah.
rainbow colors, that's definitely got to be connected to the 7 chakra colors.
Interesting.
The rainbow bridge, right? And it's
Yeah.
on her legs. So
Yeah.
telling you that her conscious standpoint is going to raise your conscious standpoint. There's a lot of information there you can understand at a symbolic level.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I
And,
appreciate this. This is great.
Yeah.
It's funny because, and you're not the first to do this, and I really, really, really appreciate it, because this is my experience, and I got the whole basket of it, and I still try to make sense of the pieces, and then it's not your basket, so you can go into some of the nitty gritties that I haven't quite thought through yet, and so I really appreciate that type of details. I really do. Yeah, it's good.
Okay, and you're into Jung a little bit, so I'll
Yeah.
share this. Jung said that red and black are the colors of the underworld.
Interesting.
Lo and behold, that's where we meet these entities, is when we meditate, basically, or we get into a hypnogenic state, like you say, an altered state of consciousness.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway, thanks for sharing.
Yeah, Gregory, thank you. Thanks for your analysis there. I appreciate it. Yeah. Parsi.
Hey, Jeff, Suzy.
Hey.
Thank you so much for having us on this show, and just your bravery coming out as experiencers.
Thank you.
I'll try and keep it succinct. I've been a lifelong experiencer with my twin brother since I was 11. We had up close sightings at 11, and recently at 42, I had a spiritual awakening. So I ended up going for a QHHT session. In that, I found past lives as a Lyran and a reptilian. I was shown a soul transfer procedure that was done, where they took my soul out of my reptilian body and they stored my soul. After that, I started getting a lot of traumatic mental health issues. So I started meditating. And the byproduct of meditating is I started seeing orbs here in Melbourne. So I live in the city of Melbourne. And I started seeing orbs coming from Orion's belt. I've taken photographs of orbs, and I've got a picture of a gray alien face in one of the orbs. So trying to make sense of all that, I went for a session with Mary Rodwell just last week.
Right.
And in that session, I saw a mantid guide, and a sort of a triangular craft came down with these owl-shaped NHI. So they had shapes of owl heads, and they all had golden arbor. And they took me up in this golden craft to look what looked like a sun. When I was in the sun, I said, "What are we doing here?" And they said, "This is the all, ALL, or God consciousness." And then they left me with the impression that I'm one of them, and that we're all connected. We're all fractals of source. So basically, that's my story, just trying to keep it short so everyone can speak. My question is, how do you deal with this mentally, like coming out with all this information publicly? I mean, there's so much stigma around this. It's so difficult to speak about this I can't even speak to my parents about this. My wife can only understand that much. But then if I start saying, hey, I've been a reptilian in a past life, I can recall the memories of the past. It's extremely difficult. So I really thank both of you for coming out like this. What sort of advice would you give someone that's sort of in the process of speaking their truth now?
Listen, I really appreciate you asking that question, Parsi, and I understand. I think a point to mention is first off, your experiencing is overwhelming, right? It's the overwhelming to the human mind, and you're being transformed by it personally, and then you're seeking, reference from the ones you love, and they can't relate, and so trust me, I can understand that, and there are a couple resources that are available for people that I think are really good. For those who know Kathleen Martin, you can just pay her, and she spends an hour with you and she learns about your contact experiences. And she I think she's very good. She's one of the kind of professionals in the field. Another as well too is Ian. Can you remember? You know what I'm talking about? You and me we went there and saw her.
Vanessa?
No, not Vanessa. No, Barry, you weren't there. Ian, she's in Southern California, and she deals with women's who had like pregnancies and stuff. Okay, and you saw an orb around remember where you saw the orb? You saw me having an orb and we were on a Zoom call. Do you remember that? I can't remember the woman's name. She's a researcher herself, but she's a contactee, and she holds groups, and she holds experiencer groups, and it's a really great, safe look. Oh, you're unmuted. Sorry, you're muted, Ian. You're muted, Ian.
Sorry, yeah, I think you're talking about Celestine, aren't you?
I don't believe it's Celestine. Is it Celestine? Anyway, I think we can't recall her name right now. Okay, so when I get that information, she was on TV not too long ago too. Okay, I guess there's too many people out there. But there are experiencer support groups. That's what I'm just trying to get at. And it's really helpful to connect actually to these experiencer support groups. Also, there's SUFON, place like SUFON, and a place like Vancouver UFO. Another thing that I did is that Vancouver UFO just gave me the platform to talk out my contact events and to put them out, to describe them, to write them, to get pictures out, and to explain to people. And I just did the hard evidence part too, where I recognize I got skeptics here. So this is my proof, the best I can provide proof that this contact event happened to me. And the more I'm at it, the more people understand that this actually did happen to him. But I think another part that you need to do is to kind of get the story out, like get the drawing, the writing, get the what you're seeing and what you're witnessing. You're trying to share it with the people you love, and they can't understand it. And when you start describing it and getting it out and kind of in some physical form, if you will, and then there are places to present this information, and Vancouver UFO is one of them. SUFON is one of them as well too. But there's also experiencer support groups as well, if that's what you're looking for. So
yeah, thank you. I've actually illustrated the craft that I saw with my brother. I put it up on my Twitter page, and I've put all the pictures of the orbs up on Twitter as well. The most shocking one was the orange one that I thought looked like a drone going across the sky. But then I took a picture of it, and then I zoomed in, and you can see the eyes and the face. And I'm getting a lot of harassment as well. Getting a lot of black military helicopters, and I live in Australia now, so in Melbourne. We don't see black helicopters around here, and I've started seeing them as soon as the orbs started coming. So I definitely need to seek out some support. But thank you, appreciate it.
Parsi, are you in Melbourne?
Yes, I am in Melbourne, Australia.
Well, you can talk to me in New Zealand, or you can talk to Cheryl Gottschall in Brisbane.
Thanks, Suzanne. I just ordered both of your books. I'm really curious because I think all of us are disclosure has kind of already happened for all of us. The others are just kind of now coming into this reality. So thank you. I appreciate it. I'll let other people speak now.
Great. Thanks, Parsi. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Max, looks like Max stepped away. Okay, we'll make sure Max keeps his spot. But Troy, why don't you go?
Okay, thank you, Jeff. I have a question, and by the way, for Parsi, I did in the chat just provide a link to my telepathy practice circle that happens every Sunday. If you want to check that out, hopefully you can make that with your time difference. But my question is for the time freezing effect that your beings have. Was that done? Do you remember with a technology device, or did they just have that power?
Yeah, great question. And I have no knowledge about that aspect. Is this consciousness? Is this something the alien does and knows how to do, just freeze it? Or is it something in the craft with which I'd have to admit that most cases that there's a craft involved, so maybe they have an ability to isolate things. Fascinatingly enough, in those moments that I'm very aware, I am frozen. So they freeze the time, and then the alien is interacting with the environment, and I'm not unfrozen yet. And so my sixth contact event, that's what happens. And I can see the entity. So the memory's coming out from a frozen moment. It's really weird. And then the entity finds me and then unfreezes me. And then now I'm in that space. So it says a bunch of different things. It says that they isolate. So, and that they cannot know who they're looking for yet. So, because I was with another person, I guess in that moment he telepathically, so that would be consciousness, he froze me out of it. But yeah, I don't how the whole thing happened. I don't know if that's a consciousness aspect for themselves or that was tech. But it is really interesting to think about that. The Vedic practice, this is all about stepping outside of time as well too, envisioning, and these are all aspects of time and consciousness. So I think I've heard one person mention that this seems to be largely that putting consciousness into craft. So if a person can remote view, then the craft can expand on those kind of concepts. So maybe that's something to do with this. There were humans can step outside of time themselves with the higher self, and the aliens just can use the craft to amplify those kind of abilities. Maybe something like that. Maybe it's a mixture of the two. Then is what I'm saying. So maybe that's my
Yeah.
It's a guess. It's a guess actually. That's right. So yeah.
What you're describing sounds like the same type of time freezing effect that I remember from at least one of my past lives, very specifically near Sirius A. But back then we had like a baton or a wand type of device, as I recall, that was one of our highly advanced weapons that Earth is not allowed to possess at this time. But we were able to just like freeze an enemy or freeze somebody as we needed to, for mostly for protection. But yeah, that's just what I remember. Another question is, while you were on any of their living technology ships, do you remember being like connected with it? Of course, pretty sure you do, but do you remember, as they seem so much larger on the inside than they look on the outside, do you remember if it ever shrunk? Because I remember that effect at one point, especially for fitting through cracks.
If the craft shrunk itself, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, if there was like an effect or a perception of that to like fit through or phase through the Earth.
I don't have that, but I would not be surprised with everything that we're hearing that there could be something as wacky as shrinking and people are still on board. Yeah, but I have no contact event like that or had that experience.
Okay, that's what I remember from a Black Triangle, but okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. You got it. Max.
Hey, can you hear me good?
Yeah, you got it. Can hear you clearly. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Thanks for doing this. Really appreciate it. So I was in a X space last night, and I'm somebody who's a channeler, and I've had some contact experiences with different entities, and kind of had this visualization in my third eye, and I've heard even the names of some of the entities that I've spoken to, not spoken, but kind of communicated with, and they've said similar things to me that you said about kind of NHI not putting as much importance on individualistic names or individualistic identity as much as humanity may do. But what I found is that they still did ultimately communicate to me, this entity communicated to me what his name was for the sake of me wanting to know that information. And what I heard was kind of a series of these quick succession of these clicks, like kind of high frequency to low frequency clicks. I'm wondering if that's something that you are familiar with.
Specifically the clicks, is that what you're saying?
Yes, is that something that you have ever heard when kind of communicating with any of the aliens that you have had encounters with, where they have communicated their names in that kind of similar way?
Interesting. No, No, I've never heard. Now, Suzy reports this in her book, having kind of grunts and having information come, or sounds, if you will, come out of the vocal cords of a gray alien. I have nothing like that. I have no. Everything is in a telepathic stance, and sometimes I'm actually confused if I'm hearing something or actually it's happening in telepathy with the tech. But I've never actually had it directly. I've never heard or had any vocalizations come out of the gray aliens or any of the aliens I've ever dealt with. Yeah.
Gotcha. Suzy, what about you?
Yes, I have heard on one occasion sounds which was like celestial tinkling sounds. Now, whether that was them vocalizing or whether that was them putting those angelic sounds into my mind, I'm not sure because I was only a child.
Okay. And this is another question for both of you guys. Something else that I've been experiencing is this ear ringing effect, as well as sometimes electrical effects that happen around me. And it's usually kind of either preceding or following bouts of encounters. And the ringing effect is it rings for about 3, 4, 5 seconds at a really high frequency, going from lower to higher, and then it will cut out completely. And then 3, 4 seconds pass, and then that happens again, and then it cuts out. And it's something where, I believe that these entities, do exist in different dimensional fields of and different planes of reality, and that they're able to kind of manifest into our 3D, 4D reality in ways that they choose. And I'm wondering if Jeff or Suzy, if you guys have any insight on what this could possibly be.
So, okay. Now back up. So, the first,
Yeah.
this ringing in the ear, what was the second? I rarely took these.
Electrical effects.
Yeah,
Like
that's right.
what I've had happen is my lights go on and off in many instances, and I've also had my gaming console be turned on. It was, and that's something that's never happened, and it's really only started ever since I've started to do this kind of contact and initiate these sort of encounters.
Nice. Yeah, interesting. And then the third, you said is what's going on. You meant in regards to these effects and these things. Is that when you said what's the last question was what is this? Is that, and so you're referring to specifically these effects? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm wondering if you have any insight into whether or not aliens could be initiating these effects either intentionally or unintentionally, or if it's something that you've heard other people talk about that had encounters,
Yeah.
or
Okay.
yourselves.
Yeah. Great question. This is where I think it all goes personally, because yeah, so let me tell you how much I can tell you about this stuff. So first off, the ringing in the ears. Yeah, I definitely have a right ringing in the ears, and it's actually pretty much the way you described it as well too. Now I know I have an object in my ear, and I know that, and they have used it to communicate to me as a communication, and I always link back to the thoughts that I'm having in that moment that triggered something. So the way I always come back to, I'm a consciousness housed in a body, and then my thoughts are projected outwards, and I can change my frequency. I can change my vibration, right? And I can change the thoughts I'm having, and I can literally, and they can be aware of that stuff, whether it's something I'm supposed to do or something they don't want me to be doing, and one of those two. And so I can get the ringing behind it. So it's a personal interaction with me in my world. Pretty typically, that's where I feel the ringing has come from. Rarely has it seemed random. So it actually seems to be something specific about what's going on in my inner world, which I'm very aware that they can. And it sounds just, very hard for people to hear that. But again, I did say the phenomenon is personal for people, and largely, again, you have to think of it from their perspective. They're living on this higher dimension, and then they do want individuals to kind of get out of their thing, get out of your own way, if you will. So and then they're interacting with you in that moment, and so that's how I feel about some of the experiences I've had. The electrical stuff is very fascinating. So yeah, I've definitely had it's actually recorded. I have my very, very first hypnotic regression I ever did was for my very first contact event. And it was recorded on my iPhone, the audio. And the audio goes wacky. It goes, and it actually blows out. And my iPhone never does it ever again. it's never done it before, and it never did it ever again. So the audio is recorded. It's a very fascinating, whatever it is. It just got recorded in the audio, and it's some kind of audio effect that happened. And I felt like I was kind of getting into this state. I've had also the experiences you've had, and it was in relation to getting memories out, some of the contact events. In one case, and it happens unbelievable with the iPhone. I think I was listening to the hypnotic regression. I was recording all the information out, and all of a sudden the iPhone, the cursor on the iPhone moved in a way I can't replicate it, and I've never been able to. It moved in a way like this, and then the speaker turned off. This whatever separately. So it was like something like culminated, went bop, and then the speaker of my house turned off, and it literally as if something pushed the button. I don't know if that happened or not, but the speaker turned off, and so these are kind of the more paranormal effects. Now I'm convinced that is me. I'm convinced the external paranormal stuff is myself. I don't quite, when the elder communicates, the only paranormal entity I have in my house, it's specific, and it's specific to something. These are manifestations of something that was going on inside myself. So I'm always convinced that these kind of more, and I could feel it actually, it culminated. I'll repeat that there was this kind of feeling of a culmination, and then it manifested out in a paranormal fashion where something kind of popped and the speaker did a weird thing. So, and I'm 100% convinced the connection here is genetics, synchronicities, visioning, and the paranormal. So what is a synchronicity? But the culmination of a meaning-making event in physical reality. Well, if it's a simulation, the idea, we already know from some of the genetic research that consciousness is emanating through our DNA. It's emanating through the body, not just out of the mind. It's emanating out of a field effect from our genetics, from our body. And there's a relationship here with my book that maybe the future will figure it out, where the visioning and the kind of like magical miracle elements of the universe combinating with genetics, with consciousness. And that is, the paranormal aspects are just manifestations of that, because it really felt connected to me when my speaker turned off. I felt like it was something that happened as like an electromagnetic effect, if you will, interacting with the meaning-making simulation world around me. And there is an element where we know the aliens can do this stuff. They can manipulate matter, right? So I don't think we have the answer, but I don't look towards an external entity because it didn't communicate too much to me. It seemed like an effect. And that's the big difference is I always look for a communication being from an entity and something random being an effect from me. And those are maybe that's the way I kind of frame it for myself. But I do know that we're more powerful than we think we are, and we are manipulating our universe, and we don't understand it fully. Synchronicities and visioning are really the hard bed proof of that for me, is that we don't quite get how we're affecting the physical reality the way yet. We don't understand those details. And I'm still convinced that my book is a part of this kind of overall picture we'll eventually get, which is we are able to vision, we are able to manipulate the physical universe in some way, shape, or form. And I'm convinced some of these paranormal events are manifestations of that. Yeah.
Jeff, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm actually going to have to go soon.
Yeah, no problem, Suzy. Yeah, you got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Jeff and Suzy. Really appreciate it, guys.
Yeah.
Hey, Jeff, I don't mean to interfere, but could I offer a comment on
Sure.
his experience?
Wait, sorry, one sec.
read-
What's Suzy? Do you have to leave right now?
In about 3 minutes, yeah.
Sure. Why don't we can say goodbye right now if you like, and then I can keep up with
Okay.
Q&A here. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone.
Bye,
Thank you.
Suzy.
Bye, Jeff.
Bye, Suzy.
Bye.
Thank you so much for being here.
Suzy.
Thank
You're
you so
welcome.
much.
Bye,
Fantastic.
Bye-bye.
Suzy.
Be in
Bye,
touch.
Suzy.
I hope it
Thanks.
cools down there. I hope it
Bye,
cools
Suzy.
off down there.
Cools down. Yeah. Great. Okay, so I'm running the show. Okay, so
Yeah.
Gregory,
No,
go
I
ahead.
I just wanted to say I read accounts of people having experiences of clicking sounds. And it's been attributed to the sound of insects. And so it kind of correlates with like the praying mantis or other insects, but it's all the same thing. Insects are highly instinctual. They operate on a non-rational basis of consciousness, not our rational basis. And I also read accounts of electrical problems. The doorbell in a house keeps ringing. This is Martin, I forget his last name. He wrote a book anyway. And it always is the same thing. You know, ringing a doorbell, to put it in context, something was trying to get a hold of him. And it's coming from the spirit world, like Jeff said. It's connected. It's like a synchronicity. You're not getting a message, and it's trying to get your attention. So anyway, I hope you don't mind, Jeff.
Oh, of course not. No, totally.
Thanks, Greg.
Yeah. Glenda.
Hi, everybody. I wanted to let everyone know that I posted a link to a tone generator. I found it online and I can't remember where, but it has all the tones and notes of the musical scale, and it gives you hertz, levels, frequencies, and every musical note in that frequency. Just be careful though, because I hurt my ears accidentally by having the speakers turned up too loud and playing around with it, and I hit a high frequency and it hurt. So just, you know, take your time with it. One thing I wanted to ask you about was the elder.
Yeah.
So I was a very I guess you would call it, when I was a kid, I had a lot of paranormal experiences, and it started at age 3, and I had a lot of them, and I just always accepted it as normal. Then when I was 8, I actually had an abduction. So hold on 1 minute, please. I apologize.
No problem.
I apologize.
No problem. No problem.
So what I remember most about the abduction was this entity who was really dark brown and really wrinkled. And whenever I hear that an entity is wrinkled, I'm trying to figure out, you know, what this being was. And of course, you know, I was 8, so it could have been a screen memory. I could have not really understood what it, you know, I've tried all these years to put it together, and I can't, maybe I can't separate my early paranormal experiences with this abduction when I was 8. But I just wondered, your elder, was the skin really dark, or was it gray?
It's greenish gray. Yeah, it's leathery greenish gray. Yeah, not dark.
Okay. Yeah, this was very leathery, but it was, to me, it took on a brown tone, very like a dark brown tone. But that was all I wondered, you know, because I'm still trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
But thank you for holding this meeting. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, Glenda. Sorry, before we move to Ian, 1 sec. So it was who I was thinking about. Geraldine. That's who I was thinking about. Where did he go? Parsi. He left? He left. Okay. So I was thinking about Geraldine. That's what. Oh yeah, Parsi. Right. There you are. Parsi.
I'm still here.
So, yeah, Manny mentioned it. Geraldine. That's what I was thinking about. So Geraldine holds experiencer groups, and I just found them to be really helpful to kind of vent, talk things through. And Geraldine does a really good job. So Manny mentioned that name there. So that's what I was thinking about. Ian was Geraldine.
Yeah, Geraldine Orozco, but Geraldine hasn't hosted those meetings for several months now. She's engaged in other things, so I think everything's put on hold.
Okay, well then,
at the moment.
My bad. So sorry about that.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, but I think Parsi's already. You know, we're going to be talking Parsi, so I'll contact you separately as well. Thank you for that.
Nice.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, Jeff. About the interference while you're under hypnosis, I've been working with Sarah Brustman Cosme. You might have heard of her. She's a QHHT practitioner. In fact, she was one of the first top 14 level 3 QHHT practitioners, so she's very experienced in her field. And she's written 3 books, and she was playing me some of the regression recordings, and she said, have you noticed the clicking in the that comes out on these recordings? And I said, yeah, and I'd noticed that clicking. Now, I've just come back from Conscious Life Expo in Los Angeles, and I met up with Zenka Caro. You might know Zenka Caro from the, I think she's from Starseed Academy. Zenka Caro has been working with Mark Sims on these radio transmitters, where you have a certain, well, you can have any number of transmitters, but say you have 3 typically. And we actually did an experiment with 3 in her room, where she demonstrated this to me. And the 3 transmitters are all set to the same frequency, so they should all be receiving interference on all 3 receivers. However, they are hearing these they've got 3 transmitters set up and receivers. We were talking. We actually had Linda Moulton Howe and Bashar and quite a few others in the room. These things were going off, click, click, click. And she said, yeah, we've actually got it down now to tones that we're doing 1 click for yes, 2 clicks for no, 3 clicks is something else. And we're actually using them at CE5 events in Sedona, Arizona. And she says, look at it now. It's clicking confirmations. And of course, we were relating experiences. And it seemed to be that these radios were interacting with us while we were in the room to talk about our experiences. And they were validating our experiences, giving us yeses as we went. Zenka said, this is what happens. I'll be meeting up with Zenka when I go to Arizona next month, and we're doing hopefully doing another CA5 event, and I'll be taking part in a live CA5 event where we'll be using these radios. But I'm just saying that that it seemed to be that we were unintentionally, because they were set up in the room anyway, unintentionally getting authentication communication through these radios while we're relating our own personal experiences.
Right.
And this is the angle that Zenka's working on. If you're interested, Jeff, I'll get you into speaking with Zenka. She's actually running at the moment Starseed Academy Connections, which are 15-minute shares with certain people who can get an invite into a Zoom meeting like this, and we'll have a schedule. If you want to join in with that, you're welcome.
Send that link to me. That's very fascinating. No, this is very similar to Paul. You gave me this type of stuff. I can't recall. I don't know if that's the same person or not. Where they were having technology that helped them. It was an extension of the EVP tech, and I can't remember. We were talking about this over breakfast at Paul, if you remember. Sorry, everyone. Paul's my friend. Paul's a local friend here, and. Paul, do you remember you were telling me about the paranormal tech? Someone took someone else's idea. Remember that? Remember the person who took that other person's tech, and it was helping with paranormal activity, right? Who was that person?
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly. Yeah.
All right, good. Yeah, there's a fellow by the name of David Sereda David Sereda, S-E.
That's right.
R-E-D-A. He lives in Nelson, BC. And he's been on Coast to Coast, apparently dozens of times with Art Bell in the old days, and more recently with George Nuri. But he had come forward with this. His wife had died, and this is a rather recent event, only in the last couple of years. And he was pretty convinced that his wife was trying to communicate with him after her passing. And he was getting radio. Initially, this is how it started. He was getting radio transmissions in the way that Ian was talking about, with clicks 1, 2, and 3 for a code for answer yes, maybe, and no. And the daughter and he were and so anyways, he contacted a friend, to get the bottom line here. He contacted a friend, I think it's either Jerry Schwartz or Stephen Schwartz. I think it's Stephen Schwartz at University of Arizona. And he had shared it with this idea with him. And then they decided to build a little cube box using light amplifying diodes or detectors, and they would watch for. They put in 3 diodes, detectors, light amplifiers, red, yellow, and green.
Oh,
and they would watch for photons to spontaneously arise in the box in relation to queries that they would give to whatever, whoever is responding. That's the issue, I think, here is who's responding to these questions. If you're asking, is it extraterrestrials? Is it a paranormal phenomenon, a ghost, a dead relative? I don't know, but that's the technology. And apparently you can go online and you can find a website, and I don't have it at the tip of my memory here, but there's a website where they actually are trying to patent the technology, a soul phone. It's called Soul, S-O-U-L, soul phone. And you can look it up, and they're wanting to allow people to be able to communicate with their dead relatives. I'm not dissing this, okay? I'm just saying that.
No, it doesn't sound like you're dissing it. No. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah,
that was it, Paul. That's it. That's exactly what you're thank you for that. That's great.
Jeff, just to add on to that, thank you, Paul, for that, because I think Zenka is now using musical notes, and don't quote me on this, but I might, I haven't joined them yet. It's just a basic outline of what they're working with, and I think that they may actually be working with some sound and visual as well. So it is actually like the real Close Encounter, the original Close Encounters film, communication type equipment now.
Right. I just love it. Yeah, this is where I think it goes. I think it goes this way, this space for alien contact, and then the alien contact helps us with the human ghost stuff, the afterlife, all those kind of extra details. Yeah, fascinating. Is your hand up, Paul, or is that a? Oh, you're muted. You're muted.
Yeah, I did want to. There was one comment that I wanted to make. It was an observation that you had made earlier about, or it was a quotation that you had on screen, and it had to do with the spiraling of light.
Spiral,
right?
vortex.
Remember that?
Yeah, vortexes. Yeah, you got it.
Vortex, vortices.
Vortices. Yeah.
You could see there. Either way, it doesn't matter to me. But what what I wanted to relate to you is that my first time, for those of you who don't know, that there's a fellow in Kelowna, British Columbia, who built a 1/5 scale pyramid to the Great Pyramid in Cheops, and he uses it as part of both a marketing thing for his organic winery, but it's also a working pyramid. So anyway, the first time I ever visited the place, I guess it was back in around 2010, the owner gave us a private tour, and we had 5 people, including him, in the pyramid. And he asked us to stand underneath the apex of the pyramid inside. And he said, I want you to stand in a circle, and I want you all to hold your hands just an inch or two apart from each other. And don't move, don't speak, just feel report what you feel. And we could literally, and I tell you, it just blew my mind, because I thought, never had experience like this before. I literally could feel the energy come in on one hand, go through my body, across my chest, out my other hand, and it was doing this with everybody in the room, around and around and around and around. So years later, I find out that we all know there's all kinds of lore around pyramids and pyramid power and all that. But many years later, I pick up a book called Raw Contact, and they're talking about the Queen's Chamber and these other chambers in the pyramid, and the effects that they have. And they talk about them being an amplifier for energy. And I won't go into the details, but I'll just say that this notion of vortices created is part and parcel of that concept, right? Because it's kind of like a funnel. If you've ever seen how water goes down a funnel or a drain, it's the same idea. And it seems like when energy is organizing, it needs to find a coherent pathway. And so what you're expressing, Jeff, experientially, sort of falls into that category, that maybe that's the kind of the imprint that energy leaves with us intuitively, visually, and otherwise to give us a sense of how things work and how energy organizes. So that's the only thing I was going to add to the story.
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, that's great, Paul. Thank you so much. I totally agree. And no, I love it. Love the extra detail. Thank you. Rolf, it's great to see you, Rolf.
Likewise, congratulations to your new book.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's great to have you here.
I think we've been going from alien experiences to paranormal experiences.
Yeah.
And I lately had quite a few of those. I have an electric pendulum clock, and occasionally I get I get up and I walk towards where the clock is. Then I notice the clock has stopped. Then I check my time, and it hasn't lost any time. So it must have stopped at that exact moment. But the weirdest one was I was laying in bed and I can see the clock from my bed. And my ex-wife finally died a few months ago. And I was kind of going back over our life, thinking about it. And that's when I saw how the pendulum stopped. Not abruptly, but slowly just came to a stop. And again yesterday, and I don't know, at 10 after 10 it stopped. Then exactly at 12 o'clock at night, I write it down, but I don't always know what it refers to. But at one time, and that goes back maybe 2 months, it stopped, and for some strange reason, I thought after I saw that the clock stopped, I was thinking about my early boss here in Vancouver. And he was not really a nice person. At work, he was out of work, he was okay. But sometimes I come to work and he's in a bad mood, he wouldn't even say hello. But anyway, so I see the clock stopped. And for some strange reason, I get this idea to check his birthday. So I take my book out with all the addresses of my friends, etc. And I check his birthday, and why I would have his birthday, I don't understand. I mean, that is not a usual thing one has necessarily. But it was exactly his birthday. But he was dead. He died 4 years ago. So strange things, and also my night light, my night table light has 4 positions, and one is very low, which is like a night room light type of thing, almost not on. It comes on occasionally, and for no reason. So there are a lot of, but the worst thing is seeing these black blobs in the ceiling. And I looked that up on the internet, and apparently that is not a good sign. But then somebody said, well, if you clean your house of all the bad spirits, the good ones will have a hard time appearing also. So I didn't do anything about it. But it is very strange that just recently I have all these strange paranormal, experiences.
Very interesting, Ralph.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, I have many UFO related things.
Yeah.
And lately I was abducted, but did not remember where they took me. But when I woke up, I was in a very strange position in my bed. And with the ear plugged in my ear, which I usually do, listen to the radio, but it was the wrong one. It was the one that is dead. There was no sound in it.
Hmm.
So they made a mistake there. But where they took me, where I went, I don't know. I noticed I had a little bit of sand at my foot end, which I kept here. And I was gonna, I don't know, analyze it to find out where the sand came from. Have never had any sand in the bed before, and I haven't had any sand after that either. So I don't know where they took me. But yeah, it's a strange world.
It's a strange world indeed. Yes. Yeah, that's wow, Ralph. Yeah. Very interesting. And I'm pretty convinced. I feel like we're going to learn pretty quickly that paranormal, alien, cryptoid, loved ones dead, it's all kind of going to be humans are the odd ones out. Actually, that's why I always keep feeling this. It's humans are the odd ones out. Everything else, even animals, animals, cryptoid, UFOs can sometimes have similar and oddly strange behaviors. I think one military guy, I can't remember who it was. It's one of these people coming out now, and and he said his experience when he's flying the jet, the craft circled it, and he couldn't help but notice it looked like or it acted like an animal would. Like he had it had a nature element to it, and it spun and moved in a weird way that kind of just seemed like it was alive. And when I'm on craft, I could feel the nature element. It's natural, it's nature going on here. And so there's something kind of connecting with that where animals seem to have a different type of consciousness than humans, and we can't understand them, yet they all seem to interact with each other or seem to relate to each other to some degree. And then you have this kind of spawning of cryptoids and aliens, and humans are the only ones who kind of need this very structured and don't understand, and we're seeming a lot more limited in our understanding of these things. So I don't know, it's a very weird picture, but paranormal, alien, it doesn't surprise me at all that having some alien contact event spawns to having paranormal contact event, which is exactly what happened to me as well too. So yeah, I understand that. Very good. Yeah.
Good luck, everybody.
So I'm gonna go soon. I think we're gonna shut it down. Is there any other, Ian, do you have a question? Is that what that hand is?
I was just going to say, for Rolf, nice to see you again, Rolf. And I was just going to say, I've worked with an abductee who woke up in Mexico on the other side of town. Woke up in the middle of the night and found herself on the other side of the town. She'd also had at least 2 other abduction experiences where the UFO had left traces outside her bedroom on the grass. But she said she was woken up next morning with dirty feet.
Yeah. Yeah, very interesting, Ralph. Please get it analyzed. I'd like to know where you went. That's very fascinating. I love how you grabbed it. You held onto it too, and you have it in your little capsule there. It's very, very interesting stuff. Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks a lot, Jeff. I just want to say thank you. That was a great presentation, and great to connect with you again.
Yeah, you got it.
I like to talk to you offline sometime, and in the pretty near future about a few things as well.
Give me a ring, buddy. It's great to. I was really excited to see your name up there as well too. So yeah, I'm really happy you showed up. So thanks so much.
Yeah.
And,
okay.
And Ralph, thanks for being here. It was great to see you again, Ralph. It's really fantastic. Paul, thanks for being here as well too. Really great to see you, my friend. And I think that's Bear, and he took off somewhere. Kimberly, thank you for being here. Glenda, thank you for being here. And thank you for your contribution. I saw some of your comments in there, so thank you so much. Enrico, Trish, Shen, and Christopher, thank you guys for being here as well too. And just thanks so much, everybody. I really appreciate the support and the interest in the story and everything. So thank you so much. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Yeah, bye, everyone.
See ya.
Bye, Ian.